A 9-year-old girl named Asha Degree went missing from her home in Shelby, North Carolina. She apparently left her parents' house in the early morning hours of February 14th in the year of 2000. It's unknown why Asha packed her book bag and left her home in the middle of the night and began walking along the nearby North Carolina Highway 18 despite heavy rain and wind. Furthermore, Asha Degree was reportedly a happy girl who was described as being shy, quiet, and obedient. She was also fearful of dogs and did not seem like the type of girl who would leave her home in the middle of the night on her own accord. Multiple driver witnesses saw her walking. One of them turned around at a point 1.3 miles away from her home and began to approach her. However, Asha left the roadside and ran into the wooded area. In the following morning, her parents discovered her missing from her bedroom. No one has seen her ever since. Investigators were able to locate some of her personal items near where she was last seen in a shed at a local business called Debbie Turner Upholstery. Candy wrappers, along with a pencil, marker, and Mickey Mouse shaped hair bow, were found. These items were confirmed to belong to Asha. Strangely, a photograph of a black girl around Asha's age was also found in the shed. This other girl is yet to be identified. Between 3:45 and 4:15 a.m. that night, two different witnesses saw Asha walking south towards the city of Shelby. A truck driver had passed Asha and later reported the sighting to police. The other witness was a motorist who actually tried to approach Asha, but she had ran away into the nearby woods. As far as I understand, it's unknown if Asha had visited the shed where she left some of her personal belongings before she had encountered this motorist or afterwards, after she had ran into the wooded field. Another potential witness came forward many years later, stating that they had seen someone matching Asha's description getting into a green vehicle that looked like a Lincoln or a Ford Thunderbird around the area where the motorist had spotted Asha earlier in that night. A new lead has been uncovered when, a year and a half later, her book bag was unearthed from a construction site along Highway 18 north of Shelby near the city of Morganton. The book bag was wrapped in a plastic bag. The worker who found it said that the book bag contained Asha's name as well as her phone number. Because her book bag still had information about Asha, it probably wasn't used by an unsuspecting kid or family. Bizarrely, items found inside the book bag did not appear to belong to Asha. There was a copy of Dr. Seuss's McElligot's Pool and a t-shirt depicting the band New Kids on the Block. Asha's mother did not recognize these items. The FBI took the bag to their headquarters for further forensic analysis. Results from that testing have not been shared publicly. In the years following her disappearance, it was concluded by authorities that Asha had probably been abducted following her leaving her home. At the location where Asha had ran into the woods during the night of her disappearance, a billboard now stands, appealing for help to find her. Asha's family hosts an annual walk from their home to the billboard to draw attention to her disappearance case. The circumstances of Asha Degree's disappearance at first suggested that she may have ran away from her home. However, investigators could not find a clear reason why she would want to run away from her home. Also, it's important to note that Asha was significantly younger than most kids who decide to run away. She was just 9 years of age. This and the fact that her life seemed to be straightforward makes Asha's disappearance one of the most bizarre cases that we have ever looked at, and it makes us want to return to this case again and analyze what really happened on that cold and windy February night. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another podcast episode. It's the Wednesday Night Mysteries podcast. We're once again back with a very bizarre case. How are you, Rain?
I'm feeling completely okay. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about the case. Before we jump into it, I really want to just ask you, have you ever heard about Asha's disappearance before, we decided to make this podcast episode?
No, not really. I only heard this case from you, actually.
Before we even decided
Yeah, I had no idea what this
Gotcha.
case was about.
Exactly. Well, from the introduction, any first thoughts or anything that jumps to your mind? I mean, real quickly, for me personally, I always had a big fascination with this case, especially because it's so mysterious and so bizarre. We have a 9-year-old girl who just walks out in the middle of the night for apparently no reason that has been publicly presented as a potential explanation why
Yeah.
she would do this.
Yeah, that actually would make you think what's going on in her mind, right?
Exactly,
Does
very
she
much so.
actually want to run away, or was she following someone? Is she
Exactly.
going to someone? Who knows?
Those are very good points. And before we started recording, we had like a conversation about this case, like what could be happening here. And I really liked some of your thoughts about it, and we're gonna get into it shortly. But I really liked your perspective because just in a matter of a couple of minutes, you kind of provided some different perspectives of what might potentially be happening in this case that I actually never considered. That's why I'm so happy to have you here on this
Thank you.
podcast and share your own thoughts.
Thank you.
Of course. And before we jump into those perspectives, I think it's time to talk a little bit about Asha's background. Shall we dig into that?
Let's go.
All right, so Asha Degree was a daughter to Harold and Aquila Degree. The two of them had married on Valentine's Day in 1988. Now, immediately I want to stop here and mention the fact that Asha also disappeared on Valentine's Day. She disappeared literally on their parents' wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow. That's completely bizarre.
That's bizarre, right?
Yeah.
And it made me question, is this potentially a factor in her disappearance? What do you think?
The Valentine's Day or her parents' wedding anniversary?
I think both. I think one of them could be right,
Yeah,
especially
one
the
of them could be.
Valentine's Day. Remember, we had the conversation prior to recording. Valentine's Day might be playing a bit of a role here
Yeah.
when you're a 9-year-old, right? I mean,
Maybe she
well,
has a little boyfriend
exactly.
or a
Well,
girlfriend.
hey, anything's possible, right?
Exactly.
All right, so Asha has an older brother named O'Brien. He was born in 1989, and he was a year older than Asha, who was born the following year in the year of 1990. The Degrees raised both of their children in their house on Oak Crest Drive in a residential subdivision amidst a generally rural area north of Shelby. According to Wikipedia, Harold and Aquila worked regular jobs nearby while the children let themselves in after school, where their parents expected that they would either be doing their homework or finished with it by the time they returned home from work. Now, this makes you wonder what kind of people Asha and O'Brien interacted with on their way back or while they're at home. What I mean by this is that apparently they were latchkey kids, and latchkey kids is basically a term to describe kids who let themselves in after school and they stay alone for a while because there's essentially no one to take care of them. So, I mean, makes you think who could have had access to talk to these kids on their way back. Now, their school that they went to is actually north from their living apartment where they lived, and I feel like they were definitely going there by school bus. It's never mentioned in the write-up, but I just assumed that was the case.
How far was it from their home?
I feel like it's not walking distance. I felt I don't have the measurements, but from the map, it seemed like it's quite a. It's not a long drive, but I don't think you're walking that distance. It has to be like just a handful of miles. Really quickly, wanted to stop here. Have you ever encountered what were Harold's and Aquila's professions? Because it only is described that they had worked regular jobs nearby. Now, the location where they lived, it's in the middle of nowhere, frankly.
Yeah.
The closest place would be the city of Shelby, so maybe they worked there. Do you have any input?
I actually didn't have any information about it. I wasn't able to find any information about it, but probably just around the area. I don't think they have to travel within the city to just go to their jobs every day, no?
Exactly. I didn't find that information. Apparently, it's not important or relevant to the case. However, according to Wikipedia, the Degrees, raised their kids, Asha and O'Brien, in such a way that the two of them were completely insulated from outside influences and had a life centered around their extended family members, church, and school. Definitely seemed like a religious family, right?
And the strict one.
A strict one.
Yeah.
A stern family, right? Very stern. North Carolina, stern living right there. The Degrees also did not have a computer in the house. Aquila stated in a 2013 interview, this is happening 13 years after Asha had disappeared, she was speaking with Jet magazine and she said, quote, "Every time you turned on the TV, there was some pedophile who had lured somebody's child away via the internet," end quote. This is probably their rationale for not having it in computer back in 2000. In 2000, I think I was like 5 or something like that. So I think I'm generally 4 years younger than Asha, but we also didn't have a computer back then. I think for different reasons though, right?
Yeah.
I don't think my parents were anticipating my abduction. And that was the reasoning for me not having a computer. I think it was like more of a,
Yeah, we don't need it right now.
we don't
kind of
need
reason.
it. Yeah, they they didn't see the point in it. But I feel like the Degree family had made a conscious decision not to have it for safety reasons.
Yeah, but the fear was actually reasonable. Because remember, there were a lot of crimes happening during those times.
Exactly.
So maybe what they see on the TV. Wait, did they have a TV?
I think so.
Oh, so whenever they watched the TV, there was some crime that was happening, like abduction happening, and the abductors used the internet, and yeah, so the fear was reasonable.
I think so. It was reasonable, but also seems like, I don't know, call me crazy, seems extensive. But then again, it
It
literally happened potentially to their daughter.
Yeah.
So makes you think, would it really even matter at the end of the day? Would Asha still be with us if they had that computer and connection?
We'll never know.
We'll never know, right? Asha was in 4th grade at the time of her disappearance. She was studying in nearby Falston Elementary School. She was going into a 3-day weekend in the 2nd week of February in the year of 2000. This means that she did not have to go to school on the Friday leading up to her disappearance in the early morning hours on Monday, while Asha's parents still had to work on Friday, of course, because, they don't get the day off. It's just for school children. Asha and her older brother, O'Brien, spent the day at their aunt's house in the same neighborhood. Later that same day, Asha and her brother went to their youth basketball practice at their school. This was still on that Friday. The following day, on Saturday, Asha's basketball team, on which she was reportedly a star point guard, lost its first game of the season. Asha had fouled out. Her parents recalled that she was somewhat upset about this and was crying along with her teammates afterwards, but seemed to have gotten over it and watched her brother's game afterwards. Now, this is a fairly significant thing. Before we recorded, we listened to a podcast from the FBI on YouTube, and remember one of the, I guess, FBI agents kind of emphasized the fact that she was upset. So, do you think this situation with Asha being upset that she lost the first basketball game, reportedly she was crying with her teammates, do you think this is a factor in her disappearance?
You mean, did she run away from home because she lost a basketball game?
Either that was the main reason, or maybe it just kind of built towards, you know,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Emotions over emotions. Yeah, that's a pretty hard thing to even think about. Because it's a very little thing, insignificant thing. Compared to
Other things that
Yeah.
could be happening there.
Exactly.
But at the same time, maybe if there was already, stress due to strict routine on a daily basis, I mean, things like that could really pile up,
Yeah.
don't you
Wait,
think?
have you ever had an instance as a kid, as a 9-year-old kid, or maybe somewhere around 9 to 12-year-old, when you were a 9 to 12-year-old, have you ever thought about running away from home?
Of course. But it was never really like gonna happen. When you have an argument with your parents or whatever,
Yeah.
you're like a little kid and you're having a tantrum, and I would definitely tell my grandma like I'm gonna run away and never come back. But obviously I never did
Yeah.
because I'm scared. Just like Keisha, I was actually scared of dogs. So I definitely don't want to run away from the house. I mean, you might run into some dogs or something like that.
Exactly.
So no, we're not really. How about you? Have you ever like had those thoughts?
Yep. I used to have a tree house back home, and at one point, I think my mom and we had an argument, and I just literally walked out, and I remember shouting, "I'm gonna run away!" And I stayed in my tree house for like 10 minutes, and then the bugs came, and I was like, "Okay, I'm done with this," and I went back home.
Yeah.
Do you think Asia had that urge to just run away?
I mean, hard to say, right? Because from the information that I saw, everything, like even the investigators said that there seems to be a missing motive here.
Yeah.
Everything seemed fine on the from the first glance.
Oh yeah, no arguments whatsoever, right?
Allegedly.
Oh.
I mean, makes you think what's really happening in that family. Maybe things are perfect. But sometimes, there could be more. Once you start digging into the family, maybe you can find something, Now, I'm not saying anything here, but I mean, you have to consider
it could be a possibility.
You have to consider everything. Let's jump to the disappearance portion, where I want to kind of talk a little bit about the timeline and the disappearance. To get us a bigger picture, because I feel like the timeline in this particular case is very important, especially on the night. So let's jump to February 13th, which was the Sunday leading up to her disappearance on early morning hours on Monday. So February 13th was a Sunday, and she, Asha, and O'Brien went to church from a relative's house and then returned home, because let's remember, it's a Sunday, so they have Sunday Mass. Now, only recently this dawned on me. Why did they go to church from a relative's house? It seemed like leading up to Asha's disappearance, there's a lot of relative activity happening, right? She went to basketball practice from the relative's house. On Sunday, she goes to Sunday Mass from the relative's house. I mean, I'll just put it out there. Is there a chance of a potential argument happening between Asha and her parents? And is she in the relative's home because she just wants to be away from her family? I mean, this is not reported anywhere, and it's pure speculation. But I'm just like shooting my ideas right now.
Yeah, or she could just be family oriented and maybe she has a close relationship with her relatives as well. That could also be the case.
Could be the case. Could be the case that I'm trying to dig into this more than there's actually.
But there might actually be. That's the thing.
Exactly, that's the thing. Now let's jump to the timeline after the Sunday Mass. So now I'm gonna talk a little bit about the timeline. Now, Asha and O'Brien went to bed that evening on Sunday at 8 p.m. Now, they had gone back to their parents' home by that time. Now, Asha and O'Brien, once again, went to bed at 8 p.m. They shared the same room. This was only a 2-bedroom apartment that the whole Degree family lived in. At, I believe, 9 p.m., 1 hour later, there was a car accident in the neighborhood and it caused the power to go out of the neighborhood. And now this power outage lasted for 3 hours and 30 minutes. The power only got, I guess, reinstalled, let's put it that way, at 30 minutes past midnight. Now, technically, this is already February 14th, you know what I mean? It's early morning hours of Monday. You could still say it's the evening on Sunday, but it's technically a Monday now. At 30 minutes past midnight, the power came back and Asha's father, Harold, had checked on his children and saw both Asha and O'Brien in their beds sleeping. 2 hours later, at 2:30 a.m. in the morning hours, Harold checked on his 2 kids once more before he himself went to sleep. Another interesting thing, it's a Monday. Harold goes to sleep at 2:30 a.m. Once again, maybe I'm trying to dig into this more so, but seems like for such a strict family, Harold himself is not really going to sleep early. He's past his bedtime.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just...
Maybe they're a strict family, but there isn't a strict sleeping pattern.
Exactly, and we don't really know what his work is, to be honest. Maybe he's doing some late night work, or maybe it's just a caring father trying to check up on his children.
I always pictured he was a priest or a pastor.
Harold, yeah.
Because of the religious background of this family. Before reading the whole case, I always thought he was a pastor. He works somewhere in the church.
Father Harold, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that happening. Anyways, Harold sees that both children are still there at 2:30 a.m. on that Monday, let's put it early hours or whatever. Now, around, and this is pure speculation because these next time points are just the time points that are, where we're speculating that it's happening around these times. So around 2:45 a.m., which was 15 minutes later, Asha's brother O'Brien sees Asha get up from her bed and use the bathroom, and then she returns back to bed. Around 15 minutes after that, at 3 a.m. that night, O'Brien actually hears Asha moving around and assumes that she is just tossing and turning in bed, and so he goes back to bed once more. And we think that this was actually the moment when Asha actually packed her stuff and left the apartment. So this probably would have happened around 3:05 a.m., 5 minutes later. Asha would have grabbed her things, her book bag, and would have left the door. Now, around 3:25 a.m., Asha arrived. We're assuming that this couldn't be happening. Arrived to the Debbie Turner's upholstery business, to the shed. For some reason, she goes to that shed. We don't really know, because let's remember that her items, such as her pen, her marker, her Mickey Mouse bow, as well as some candy wrappers, were found. Now, this shed is like heading south towards the city of Shelby, so we have an indication that she was heading towards Shelby.
Wasn't it raining that day?
Very much so. That's actually very, very important to mention. It was a storm.
Oh, so she probably used the shed as like a rest, and she probably waited for the rain to stop before she resumed her walk.
That's a very good point. That's actually a very good point. I never really considered why she would go to the shed. It was always a big mystery in my head. This is why I like your perspectives, because you kind of have a rational explanation, potentially. I mean, it was raining. Now, I want to quickly finish up the timeline because there's a little bit of a confusion happening here in one area. So, sometime between 3:45 a.m. and 4:15 a.m., a truck driver as well as a motorist had spotted Asha walking down Highway 18 towards the city of Shelby. She was heading down south. The truck driver most likely passed her first, as when the motorist spotted Asha. Asha had ran into the wooded field. Why I want to stop at this particular point in time, because we don't really know, and I'm gonna try to make sense of what I'm saying here, but it could be hard to wrap your head around. It's not really known, the way I understand, when exactly Asha went inside of the shed at Debbie Turner's upholstery, because she could either have gone to that shed prior to that incident with the motorist or after that incident with the motorist. Do you know what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah.
Because when you look at the map, the place where she had encountered the motorist is actually further south from Debbie Turner's upholstery business. So you would kind of rationally suspect that maybe this is happening after she went to the shed. For example, this would mean that she leaves her home and she walks to the shed, stays there for a bit, eats a few candies, leaves personal belongings for whatever reason, then continues walking down the road, and then has that encounter where she runs into the woods. Or it could be the case that she kept walking and she had encountered the man in the wood, the motorist, ran inside of the woods, and then subsequently made her way to the shed after the fact, and she was shaken up by the whole experience, and she was there maybe eating a candy, left some personal belongings for some reason. Does that make sense? And which do you think is the more likely? Do you think she went there to the shed before the motorist encounter or after the motorist encounter? I really quickly want to say that I'm like right in the middle. It's hard for me to say, but now I'm thinking more that it could be after she ran into the woods. Because let's remember, before she encountered the motorist, there is seemingly no reason for her to go into the woods, go off from the Highway 18. So this motorist gave her a clear reason to go to the woods. And the wooded area is actually, well, if you go back a little bit, trace back, you would find yourself walking into the area of the shed. So I think this could be happening after she ran into the motorist. Now, your thoughts?
That's a very good point. That's a really good point. But the main question that I have right now is she still heading south? So if it happened before she saw the motorist, if she waited on the shed for the rain to stop or whatever, and then she encountered the motorist or went back to the forest, and either way, is she still heading south?
No one knows. I mean,
Yeah.
impossible to tell. Impossible to tell.
So it could potentially be she got lost in the woods, or was she still trying to go south?
I think unlikely that she got lost in the woods, in my opinion. Even the investigators concluded that she was most likely abducted. I think the more likely scenario here is that someone had abducted her.
Yeah.
And I want to bring in the third potential witness who saw, allegedly, someone matching Asha's description get into a green vehicle that looked like a Lincoln or a Ford Thunderbird around the same area where Asha had ran off earlier in the night.
There we go.
And this is the third witness, and I think this witness is only a potential witness because I think law enforcement, at least from what I understood, they considered the first two witnesses as
Credible witnesses.
credible, and this is maybe less credible, but at the same time you can't rule this person out. And this should be happening around like 5:30 a.m. in my opinion. At 5:45 a.m. that morning, Aquila awoke to basically wake up the children for the school day. This was an important day since it was not only Valentine's Day, but also the Degree's wedding anniversary. I think it was maybe even their like 11th or 10th anniversary.
I think it was the 12th.
12th. Yeah, it makes sense because they got married on 88 and this was 2000.
Yeah.
Now, at 6:40 a.m., the first police officers had arrived to the scene. Police dogs called to the scene as well, but they could not pick up Asha's scent, probably because of the heavy storm.
Yeah, most likely.
I think the storm kind of makes it harder. Just
Washed away all the scent.
maybe, but we're just guessing. Of course, we're not experts. And by the end of the day, all that had been found was a small mitten, which Aquila Degree said it did not belong to her daughter. She noted that no other winter clothing had been taken from the house, and this was North Carolina in the February. It's not super warm, I would assume.
Yeah.
Now, we're kind of done with the general timeline. Anything that kind of jumps out to you? For me, it's still so bizarre. Why?
Yep.
Why walk away? There must be a reason.
I really feel like she's meeting someone.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, save that thought
Yep.
for the theories.
For later. Now, before we jump into theories, we should talk about the search first. On the 15th of February, candy wrappers were found in a shed at a nearby business along the highway, near where Asha had been seen running into the woods. Along with them were a pencil, marker, a Mickey Mouse shaped hair bow that were identified as belonging to her. Also found was a photograph of a black girl around Asha's age who has yet to be identified.
This is one of the most spooky and bizarre details.
Terrifying, right?
Right. There's another image, and you managed, I don't really know where you found it, but you managed to find this picture, right? It was in some article, right?
Yeah. A newspaper article.
A newspaper article, and that girl, and I'm looking at the picture right now, she looks strikingly similar to Asha herself.
I know. When I looked at it, and when I first saw it, I thought it was Asha. So I kind of jumped out. And when I read the caption, the description, it wasn't. It was just a girl that looked exactly like her.
So now this makes us question, does this picture belong to the abductor, or does this picture belong to Asha?
I feel like chances are it could be from someone else.
From someone else, right?
Yeah.
Who had a keen interest in girls like Asha. Also, but I think there's a chance that this could be of Asha. Like Asha had the picture of a girl who was very similar to her.
Yeah, but wouldn't the parents know about this?
I mean, it's just a picture. I mean, trust me, I had way more bigger things that I kept away from anyone's knowledge than just a simple picture.
I know, but if we consider their age as well, it has to be someone Asian know and her family knows.
Exactly, but also it comes...
Or at least her brother.
My reasoning for believing that this picture might belong to Asha and not the abductor, because I'm not really sure if the abductor took Asha to the shed. I'm leaning towards that Asha went to the shed, potentially after running away from the motorist. Maybe she was distraught before continuing her journey and then she got abducted. So I'm thinking the abductor or abductors, if this was an abduction, of course, did not have anything to do with that shed. They were never in the shed. Like, what makes us think that the abductors were in the shed? I think Asha was the only person at the shed that night.
Yeah.
So whatever she left, it was her belongings. There were no belongings that did not belong to her that were found in the shed. So there was candy wrappers that
Yep.
belonged to her marker, her pen, and the picture. Why would we think that out of all of these items that already belong to Aisha, why would you think that this one picture all of a sudden does not belong to her? I think all items belong to her. I think this picture was something that Aisha had. And I think this picture could be actually connected to why she left. I don't know in what way. I don't know what was going through Aisha's mind, but I feel like that picture could have potentially be connected to the overall reasoning for her making this strange, bizarre walk out of her house.
Probably the creepiest part is nobody knew who that little girl was.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah, no one from her family, her extended family, church, and from the school. Nobody knows about this girl.
Exactly. Perhaps it's something that Aisha had acquired herself.
How?
In
And
the
when?
school,
It's
I
pretty
don't know.
bizarre, right?
Maybe someone gave this picture to her, and this
Someone
was
from within the community?
the community told her a backstory about this picture. I mean, this looks like some sort of your long lost sister type of a ordeal, because the person in that picture looks exactly like Aisha. Maybe I don't know. There's multiple different ways that this could go, but I feel like we could move along.
Of course, yeah. So on the next day, the 16th of February, Aquila realized that Asia's bedroom was missing her favorite clothing, including a pair of blue jeans with a red stripe. A week later, the search was called off after 9,000 man-hours had been invested in the search of the 2 to 3 mile radius, which is 3.2 or 4.8 kilometers of where she had last been seen. Flyers had been posted all over the area, and 300 leads had been submitted that ranged from possible sightings to tips about abandoned houses and wells where Asia might have ended up. County Sheriff Dan Crawford said, "We have never really had that first good substantial lead." He urged the media to keep the story alive. Now, we could jump on to later developments, and it was from Aquila's account of what Asia had taken with her. Investigators believe that she had planned and prepared for this departure over several days preceding her disappearance.
Yeah, so this is something interesting for me to consider. Investigators believe that she pre-planned her, let's say, runaway, or whatever she was intended to do that on those early morning hours, several days before she vanished. Now we actually know what she was doing for those several days.
Yeah.
Remember, no school on Friday,
Basketball game?
basketball game on Saturday.
She got upset.
Yeah.
They lost.
Sunday mass on
Church.
Sunday, church on Sunday, and then she runs away. So we know what she was doing generally, but I feel like there's a lot of missing information. Like we only have bits and pieces from those days, you know?
Yeah.
A day has 24 hours. We only know like maybe what she was doing for
An
like
overview.
I know for like a couple of hours during the day, but what was she really doing on Friday? What was she doing on Thursday? What was she doing on Wednesday, you know? What was she doing for the first part of Sunday? 'Cause we only know that she went to church. We don't really have the information. I
Did
think
she stay at home? Was she out with her friends or something? Like,
this
who
is
knows?
where I'm gonna actually ask the audience to kind of chip in. If you know more kind of details leading up to her disappearance, please let us know because it's important. It's important when we talk about the case. But
Exactly.
I think we can move on.
Okay, so on August 3rd, 2001, Asia's book bag and other items were discovered during a construction project near Morganton, about 26 miles north of Shelby. It was wrapped in a plastic bag.
Why?
This is creepy.
Why?
Yeah.
Okay, what was inside?
Okay, so the book bag contained a copy of a Dr. Seuss book, a t-shirt depicting the band New Kids on the Block, and neither appeared to belong to Asia.
Okay, I have a question. Have you ever heard about the band New Kids on the Block?
No.
I think it's like a 90s.
Is it a boy band?
I think so, new boy bands. From what I gathered, this band was probably like more for like teenage girls, right? Not for 9-year-olds. So I think Asha herself probably wasn't
Particularly interested in it.
in it, yeah. So that's why the mother was like, I don't know about these items.
It was creepy how they found the book bag inside the plastic bag with a couple of items that did not belong to Asia.
Yeah, and
It's pretty bizarre.
it was like 22 miles up north.
It's pretty far away. There's no way she could have walked that far.
Pretty far away, but also something to consider that it was along that Highway 18. So that book bag didn't really travel far away from the highway itself. It was still along the highway. So it makes me think, when was it discarded? Because if it was just a regular neighborhood somewhere in like Morganton or something like that, then maybe we could think, oh, this could have been placed here anytime. But just the fact that it was along the highway, potentially this could have been ditched out like days after her disappearance. Why was it in a plastic bag? Why was
To hide it from the police.
Why not just burn it? You know what I mean?
That's
Why do you actually preserve it somewhere in a ditch, in a plastic bag, as if you're trying to preserve the quality?
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, I think you have some additional details regarding the book.
Apparently, the book was from the library at Asia's elementary school.
So this could still be Asha's belonging. Well, no, not really. Because this is bizarre to me, because they don't know who this book belonged to. They just know that it was from the library. But
They didn't know who checked it out.
How? Don't you have records?
Yeah, and library cards, right?
Exactly. So couldn't they just check? I mean, maybe it was a book that it was taken from the library. Maybe it had a stamp, the library stamp, but it wasn't actually checked out properly. Someone just took it. Maybe there isn't even a checkout mechanism in that library. Maybe you could just take and leave as you wish.
Yeah, considering it was an elementary school and kids are too young to actually do it. So that's probably a good case, good point.
It was a library that you could just take
Yeah.
and leave. So the chances are that this book maybe was Asha's. Well, maybe Asha took it and just the mom just didn't notice it before.
That's true.
And then maybe the boy band was also somehow from Asha.
But I think the mom would know.
The mom would know. I feel like a t-shirt is something they would know.
Yeah, because you would have to do the laundry and stuff.
Exactly. Lastly, I see that the worker who found this book bag actually stated that Asha's name and phone number was also in the book bag. So I think it's probably unlikely that this book bag was somehow appeared in like some flea market and some other kid picked it up and used it. I think it's impossible because, Asha Degree is literally all over the news in the local vicinity, and you see a book bag with her personal details. I mean, you're reporting this to the law enforcement. Also, it was found in some ditch or something like that. I don't really know the description of the area where it was found, but seems like it was not reused by anyone actually to kind of keep items in. It was just,
throw items in.
Yeah, it was just laying dormant, but spooky nonetheless.
Definitely.
All right, so I've prepared a couple of questions here that, I just want to kind of have a conversation with you about. So the first question would be whether or not Asha's parents' wedding anniversary was somehow connected to the disappearance, and let's add the Valentine's Day as well. So Monday was a big day. Valentine's and
the wedding anniversary.
Wedding anniversary. So in your opinion, does it somehow connect?
Not necessarily, I don't think so, but I think the Valentine's could be more connected to it than the wedding anniversary.
I think so too. I mean, for a kid, you don't really care about the wedding anniversary of your parents. You don't really care about the Valentines,
It's something special even for children.
especially for like little girls. I would say,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Right.
definitely. Yeah.
So it's probably like I don't know. It's interesting because when you think about it, maybe she was anxious about it, didn't want to go to school because back in the day in school we would have like this annoying stuff where they would like put like stickers on your face, like little hearts and stuff like that. And overall, it was like a big commotion.
Yeah, it
and,
was.
and maybe she didn't want that.
Or maybe she's excited about that. Or maybe she's meeting someone to spend a Valentine's Day with.
I mean, at 9,
Yeah, but like friendship kind of thing.
yeah.
Let's meet somewhere over there and then let's walk to school together.
Regarding that, I think she went to school via the bus, and her parents need to pack her stuff. So I don't think that's logical.
Or how about let's meet somewhere over there and we'll take the bus to school together.
Yeah, but what about the parents though?
Yeah, that is true.
It's not part of the routine, you know. Like if she's not in her bed, police are called. So
Yeah, that's
I
true.
don't think that's there. But anyways, another question is, well, we already talked about it. Who is the black girl in the photograph found at the shed, and how is this girl connected to the case? I mean, it's such a bizarre mystery, right? It could go either way.
It's the creepiest part for me. Because the fact that the community doesn't know about this little girl and we don't know how Asia got this photograph.
And I mean,
Creepy.
the picture is in the one that I have is like black and white.
That's
I mean-
the original one.
When is it even from? It could be like it could even be from the 70s or something like that.
And it looks professionally taken. That's what's made it so much creepier.
Someone knows about this picture. Someone definitely out there knows who this person is. It's just that. It's
How
just
did
that.
Asia get it?
Yeah, how did Asia get it? And I think it's this. I think this picture. I mean, it's not in the Wikipedia. It's not really out there. I think this picture should be out there because I think someone might know who this
Yeah.
little girl is. And lastly, another question will be, whose items were found in Aisha's bag a year and a half later, and how did the book bag end up in Morganton? The most obvious question to ask. And whose items were these? If it was not Aisha's, whose boy band t-shirt was this?
That's a really good question. I have no idea.
I mean,
The book could be hers.
the book could be hers, but if this was an abduction, which I strongly believe it was, then maybe the t-shirt belonged to the other victim.
Or to the abductor. Or maybe she owns it, the abductor owns it.
Yeah, maybe. It didn't really specify what size t-shirt it was.
It looks massive for a 9-10-year-old.
So it's probably like,
A teenage girl's,
yeah,
right?
maybe the daughter of the abductor.
Or just an older girl. Maybe the abductor had it with her or him as an extra clothing for Asia.
Potentially. I mean, this is hard to speculate on.
Exactly.
And I think let's jump to the theories. I think it's a good time to jump to the theories. Now, for the theories, I think we had like different kind of perspectives here. So I think it's very interesting for us to kind of go over this.
Of course.
I would like to begin. Well, you know, I listed down a couple of potential basic theories in my mind. So the first theory would be that Aisha was abducted by a complete stranger that she had never met before. Now, for this to happen, Aisha would basically have to walk out from the home on her own accord. In other words, she would have to run away. It's hard for me to imagine any reason why Aisha would want to run away, would want to do this. Perhaps this could be connected to the first basketball game of the season that she lost, or maybe there was an unreported argument within the family with her parents or something like that. Otherwise, I don't really see why she would want to run away. Now, according to Wikipedia, Aisha was insulated from outside influences? If so, then it should be unlikely for a stranger to have an opportunity to lure her out of her home as well. So I'm not really sure how I feel about this stranger theory. The more I think about it, the more I think it's unlikely that a complete stranger had anything to do with this. Unless there is something in that family that we don't know about. Like, for example, maybe there was a huge fight. I mean, maybe some audience members might know more information what was happening on that weekend, because I think what was happening on that weekend is a big factor, or not maybe even that weekend, because let's remember that investigators believe that Asha was actually planning this for several days.
Yeah.
So something happened recently in that family.
Or
that we-
maybe she was bottling up her feelings and she burst it up and
Yeah.
started planning this.
But this is the only way a stranger could abduct her, I think. And also, this is not a heavily driven road from what I can see. It's not a heavily populated area, so
Very rural.
very rural. So, and a stranger abduction is also like less likely just from the statistical point of view. There's not that many people there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for someone to just drive past a little girl and snatch her up like that, I mean, it's also statistics that don't really work in the favor of this theory, in my opinion. Another theory I have is that Asha was potentially lured away by someone close to the family. According to Wikipedia, Asha once again lived an insulated life. The only people besides her parents and brother that she would interact with are her extended family members, so some or close people to her family. Investigators believe that Asha had planned and prepared for her disappearance for several days beforehand, which also could kind of play into this theory. If she was getting lured away by someone close to the family, someone was feeding her information, someone gave her the picture, told her a story about the picture, you know what I mean? Asha packed enough items to kind of last a couple more days. I mean, anything's possible.
Exactly.
Your thoughts on this?
This could potentially be a case. Could it be like a close family friend?
I think it's possible. I think I found online comments. People are actually thinking that this is likely.
Yeah, most likely someone she trusted. She knows and she knew and she trusted.
Yeah. Lastly, I would like to mention that another theory I have is that perhaps Asha's parents know more. And I say this because why would a fearful and shy 9-year-old girl walk out in the middle of the night during a storm? And Asha had packed her bags as if she did not want to return home again. So once more, I mean, it's according to Wikipedia, it's a perfect family. Everything's amazing there. But is there a chance that there's more than meets the eye when you think about the parents? Is there something in that family that kind of doesn't feel right? I mean, for me, I don't want to trash the victims, which are the parents, of course. But it just seems to me like the timeline is missing certain details. Certain, like, we got like bits and pieces. It's almost like we have like hand-picked timeline items, you know, like Sunday. Sunday mass.
Just went to church.
Yeah, Saturday. Just played a game.
She was upset. We calmed her down.
Friday. No school, but she spent the day at Owen's house, and then they practiced. No other information about what happened earlier. It's like we have been given, like, it almost feels like these cherry-picked timestamps. It's
a really
almost
good point.
Yeah, it's almost like I would like to know more about what's
As
happening.
you said, there are 24 hours in one day, and that's probably like they handpicked activities that would last for an hour, maybe 3.
Exactly, right? So I'm not saying that, you know, obviously I'm not saying anything here. I'm just saying that
We're just speculating.
you have to consider everything, right? And I know that you have your own kind of perspective on this and your own thoughts. Shall you kind of give your own take on these things?
Oh, of course. Upon reading this case, like the first thing that came into my mind after reading this was Asha simply walked away from home, ran away, and then she met trouble on the way. Maybe as I said before, there were feelings bottled up. She finally burst out. Maybe arguments with her parents. We're not sure. We don't know what happened. But my first thought was like, oh, she ran away. And as she was walking, maybe some abductors or bad people saw her there, strangers exactly, and took advantage of that. Because we have to consider that she ran out at what, 3 a.m., right?
Around 3 a.m.
Around 3 a.m. So it's very dark. It's raining. And what if she's walking around there? Some of the strangers pass by her. Maybe she went hitchhiking.
Exactly.
And the strangers took advantage of that.
Exactly. Just a wild thought. Was she sleepwalking?
Yeah, I don't think so. Because if she was sleepwalking, she would have walked away without a bag. It seemed like she packed it.
I know, that's the only thing that would kind of go against this, but why I just had this thought was because think about it from this perspective. She's living in a room with O'Brien. So she must have been confident that O'Brien wouldn't cause an alarm.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm also thinking about the packing. She packed clothes and pencils, markers, candies.
Yeah, but isn't that like what you pack for school?
No, we don't really pack clothes for school.
That's right. That's the only thing that's out of place.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she was fairly confident walking out.
Exactly. For a fearful little girl, she was sure that day.
From the perspective of O'Brien not causing an alarm, O'Brien was hearing her all night long. But when she walked out, O'Brien didn't do anything.
Or maybe he was too sleepy. Maybe she was being very quiet.
Maybe she was being quiet. Maybe she perceived the situation differently. 9-year-olds. We can't really think that this was like, Da Vinci at work.
Exactly. And maybe O'Brien only heard some rustling. Oh, maybe he thought, oh, my sister's just tossing around, can't sleep.
Exactly.
But maybe he didn't know that she was already packing and was planning to go away.
Yeah.
Right? And another theory I had is Asia was probably groomed by someone she trusted, maybe a close family friend, maybe someone she met at the church or at school, but maybe someone who personally knew her or she knows personally. I said that because there was apparently a witness that saw Asia getting inside a car, right?
Green car, yeah.
Green car. Yeah, so maybe this groomer that she trusted, they were planning it all along. Oh, you go out of your house, you meet me at this place. Yeah.
Exactly, and it works from the logical perspective that she ran away from the first motorist, but then if this was the case, then she didn't run away from this other guy. So maybe she already knew who she was waiting for.
Exactly. Apparently she was a fearful girl, right?
Yeah.
So when she saw the other motorist, she got scared. But when she saw this car, she trusted the person in this car. She knew the car. It was familiar. So she didn't get scared.
But at the same time, it's hard for me to believe in this because she was all over the place that night. Remember, she left candy wrappers, a bunch of her personal belongings in the shed. Then she walked back on the road. I mean, she didn't have a cell phone. She didn't have probably a watch or anything. How would she know when and where to meet up with this person?
Maybe they have a certain meetup point.
But why not later on in the day after school? Why in the early morning hours? Why not just after school?
And that's a very good question. I also had this thought that maybe she intends to go back.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good, before the school even begins. She leaves at 3. She intends to be back by 5 or something.
Before
Anyone even notices.
before the mom wake them up.
Very good point.
Yeah, so I was thinking maybe there was a certain meetup point because okay, really quick story. My mom and dad, they do have phones, but they were so used to not having phones that they barely use it. And whenever they meet up somewhere, for example, dad's at work and mom's at work and they're planning to meet up both after work, they're not even gonna text each other. They would just agree to meet up at one point at this time. So I think maybe back then, since they don't have any phones, they were doing the same thing.
I mean, back in the day, it's the only thing you can do,
Exactly.
right? You don't even have a choice.
So I was thinking maybe Asia was about to meet with someone at a certain point during the early hours and she intended to go back and go to school afterwards. But she never did.
Yeah, but then why would she pack clothes? If she wanted to go back home in a couple of hours, why would she pack the clothes? Well, it's a 9-year-old. Maybe you don't want to, once again, consider this person as a Da Vinci or...
Yeah, but at the same time, you mentioned earlier that she didn't pack any, or she wasn't wearing any winter clothes, right? She wasn't wearing a coat or anything.
Well, we think that way because no winter clothes were missing. Just her favorite kind of casual clothes.
So was she wearing her favorite casual clothes, or?
We have no idea what she was wearing. We assume that she was because the items were missing. But once again, there was no security cameras or anything,
course,
so we don't know. We just assumed that she wore her favorite clothes.
So yeah, at the end of the day, no, not at the end of the day, my thoughts were she was meeting someone, a special friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, or just a really special friend, best friend. She was preparing for it. She was very excited. She met up with that person, and it was probably maybe an older person.
Or maybe she didn't even meet up with that person. Along the way, she got abducted.
Yeah, exactly.
Potentially. So, I guess, when you think about the disappearance of Asha Degree, there's many different ways this could have gone. To conclude the podcast, I would probably say that I think that someone close to the family or someone who had the chance to kind of speak to Asha somewhere in private, maybe in school, maybe in the basketball practice, maybe in the church, maybe kind of had something to do with it. I say this because Asha did seem like she pre-planned this departure. Also, there is, a lack of any reported potential motives that she would leave. I think there's something. I think that's because maybe the parents don't know the full extent of who Asha talks with, and I think Asha potentially could have been in contact, with someone else, older, that convinced her of some story. Once again, why do this in the middle of the night? I don't know, because there's more logical times to abduct a child.
After school?
Yeah. But there is a reason that she left. There is a reason. And then the law enforcement also suspect that she has been abducted. So I will just say it's a bizarre case. I do think she was abducted. Unfortunately, I don't think she's alive anymore, even though I wish that she was. I don't think she's alive anymore. I have no idea how to explain the items that did not belong to her book bag, why the book bag was in a plastic bag 22 miles north.
That also raised a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's just so bizarre. But I think we had a good conversation here. I mean, what is your conclusion? How are you leaning towards?
That she got abducted. She ran away. My thoughts were she ran away, meeting someone, or that someone abducted her, or she got abducted along the way. Because that would also explain the book bag inside the plastic bag.
Yeah.
because a 9-year-old wouldn't do it. She didn't even have plastic bag on herself, right?
Yeah.
And that would also explain the T-shirt.
Yeah.
And yeah, those were my thoughts.
All right. Well, I think we are probably going to wrap this one up. Please leave your thoughts.
Oh yeah, let us know what you think. This is a bizarre case.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure some of you guys will definitely have some ideas, and we can't wait to see you on the next one. Have a great rest of the weekend, the rest of the week, a couple of days, and we'll see you soon, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.